Guys, welcome. A little bit early today to the 22nd episode of the Crossover Sports Podcast. Rock it out with CT3. Matt will be here momentarily, but right now it's the dynamic duo, the original, the terrible twosome. So Trey, introduce yourself.
Hey guys, it is CT3 as I've been called. Um, this we got some good stuff to talk about with the Eagles, man. Some and that's some other stuff, but yeah, uh, looking forward to this podcast in particular.
Always. So, you guys who are fans of us, you know how we start the show always and all the time. We started with our crossover hot takes. And so, Trey, we're going to start with one of our Russell Westbrook topics. We're going to start there. So, what matters? We're not going to get into Mark Cuban's comments. We're going to get into that one later. But what matters more to you, wins or stats? Tackle that, Trey.
It's a for me wins um, but stats it's not wins matter and then stats don't matter to me. In my opinion, wins matter as well as stats because um, and I'll go outside of the sport of basketball. If you've ever seen the movie, I believe the name of the movie is called Moneyball or something, but it's a movie based on a true story about the Oakland Athletics and how they took unorthodox methods of looking at plus minus and all these weird statistics that usually coaches and stuff didn't really look at, and they realized that there was a correlation between those stats and winning. So certain stats and winning are there's a correlation between them, and so stats do matter. You know, um, but in my opinion, winning is uh, like in any sport, winning is like your number one priority. Um, and like in high school, I was never like a big scorer. I was more like I could score, but like I was more of a guy, more of a hustle guy. Play defense, take charges, grab rebounds, that type of thing. Um, and but like when I was, my goal when I'm on the court is to win the game. After the game, I want to, I might want to see how many rebounds I had, or how many points I had, or how many assists, or blocks, or steals, or whatever that type of thing, and that's okay. But I don't necessarily, um, and I know we're gonna get into this later, but you know, people like Russell Westbrook, he's a great player and he puts up great stats, but they don't necessarily lead to wins. So there's uh, some people are, they're all for stats. Like they just want to see, football, basketball, whatever. They just want to see high, really high scoring games, you know, lots of threes and all that type of stuff. But for me, like winning has to be the top priority. Like even though stats do correlate with winning in some cases.
Listen, I know we're being general with this because we have the more specific thing when it comes to Westbrook later on in the show. But Russell Westbrook. Before I say anything about this man, dynamic player. Don't hate him. One of the top point guards in the league. One of the top players in the league. But going on with what Trey said, sometimes it matters about the wins. And for me, if you are a part of a team, like an actual team that is built around your strengths to help to build you up when you're strong and build on your weaknesses, you shouldn't have to put up triple doubles. Now, am I saying that a triple double is a bad thing? No, I am not. But 41 triple doubles in one season, while that may be an impressive stat, you need to also look at who was on that list. Those are people like Wilt Chamberlain. Now, what is Wilt Chamberlain known for? 100 points in one game, most triple doubles. Before Russell Westbrook came along, um, and Wilt Chamberlain, while he was a great player, he played in the really really run and gun days of the NBA, where it was you had one good player and a lot of math players, right? So you could score 100 points and get 30 rebounds a game or whatever he averaged during that time. I think it was 50 points per game, like 15 rebounds, and he never really was good at assists, but he had like at least 3 or 4 assists per game, right? And so back then, obviously, he could do all that and still win a championship, right? But Russell Westbrook, great player, but you see that the Thunder basically run and go by what he does. So if he's not scoring a triple double, then they're more likely to lose. And there have been games this season where he's done a triple double and they still lost. So, to me, obviously, I'm going to say, because I'm an old school b-ball fan, wins to me matter more than stats. Now, it's not saying that you don't need stats, because obviously you do need stats, but there's a lot of people who have a lot of numbers and no rings. Take Allen Iverson, for example. Allen Iverson is one of the top scorers ever, and I brought him up a lot on this podcast. He is a Philly icon. He's up there with Dr. J in significance when it comes to Philadelphia basketball, right? But he's one of those people, unlike Dr. J, who had the stats in the rings. Allen Iverson has stats and no rings. Now, rings, this is his old school argument. Do I think rings are important? Rings are definitely important. But they don't matter. They do matter, but they don't matter as much as the wins. And you need wins and stuff. And I know that a lot of that is out of Russell Westbrook's control. But at some point, we got to see this for what it is. The fact that it is great to have all those triple doubles is also saying that you don't really have that good of a team around you if you're doing all that and you're still, what are they? I think I looked at they're six right now. The playoff started, they would be 6 in the Western Conference. So they're slowly going down and stuff and whatever, but I fully expect them to be in the playoffs. I don't expect them to go far in the playoffs, but I fully expect them to be in the playoffs. So, but to me, I'm gonna agree with Trey. Not stats. Wins matter more than stats to me. And like him, I play sports too. I was more of the rebound, pass, the utility player that would come in and give you points, give you assists, do what I needed to do to win, right? And that's what we do. That's what we're trained to do as athletes. We do what we got to do to win. We do what the team needs, right? And Russell Westbrook, to borrow a term from Mike Smith and Jamel Hill, is doing a little too much for the Thunder to win. And the way this goes is, with him is, players that do too much like this usually burn out, and who have high usage rates don't really get much rest during the regular season. Like LeBron did early in his career, they burned out when it comes to the playoffs. Eventually, they will burn out. And, that what the Thunder should do is get Russell Westbrook more help. Because right now it's Russell Westbrook and a bunch of guys other than Victor Oladipo, who I've never heard of, right? So, obviously, wins matter more than stats. That's how I feel. Trey, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
Nope. I guess I'll save what I got, the rest of what I got to say for when we get to Mark Cuban's comment.
All right, then let's go on our other favorite topic. There's so much to talk about when it comes to this week with our president, and We're gonna try not to dwell on this too much, but we're gonna tackle his most explosive claim, which was basically throwing President Obama under the bus by saying he wiretapped him and the conspiracy theory and all that. But we're gonna tackle this from President Obama wiretapping Trump because that might be the most explosive comment he's made so far in his 50 days. So go ahead and take off, Trey, on that.
When I heard his claim that Obama had wiretapped him, and to be truthful, I don't understand the details of when he was saying Obama wiretapped him. Like, I guess during his campaign or whatever. And to be honest, I don't really care because um, President Trump, he has this thing where, and I've said this before, he has this consistent battle with the media. He has this what's the word I want to use? He has this it's almost an inferiority complex where in order to make himself feel better, he's got to tear other people down. Um, it's almost like the conversation we had, I think, 2 podcasts ago, where we were talking about, um, you know, bu- bullying, and I think Kenan kind of likened Donald Trump to a bully. But I'm not even going to speculate to whether or not Obama wiretapped Donald Trump's phone, or whether there's any truth to that or not. And truth be told, it really doesn't. It really doesn't matter. Um, because I mean, first of all, President Obama is not president. He's not president right now. He's now left office. Um, and that's really all I have to say. Like, it's it to me, it's just like, okay, really, that, like, this man went through 8 years of really hell with Congress and how they treated him and how they um, you know blocked things that he was trying to get done. And now he's got some free. Now he's no longer president. He's got some time to relax, and kind of gain some of his youth back, in a sense. And now he's got this hanging over his head. You know, oh, did Obama wiretap Donald Trump? And he Donald. I don't know. I can't say anything more about it, because it's just, if it infuriates me.
I was really trying to have a weekend where I fully ignored Donald Trump and whatever he did. I was really trying, man. I was trying to actually have a weekend where I didn't have to be politically active on what he was doing. And, it didn't work, obviously, last weekend. Like, I was out with my family and friends, just hanging out. And then I saw on Facebook and Twitter that the world, literally, to borrow a phrase from the Broadway show Hamilton, the world was literally turning upside down. And I was trying to figure out, well, what was going on. And then I saw on Facebook, my friend, shouts out to my friend Casual Owens. Uh, yes, that is her real name. Shouts out to my friend Casual, who was on it and informed us, all of us, on Facebook about what Donald Trump tweeted at 6:30 in the morning, right, on Saturday. Why he was up at 6:30 in the morning and not sleeping in, whether you're president or not. You do probably, even though president of a country is not a 9 to 5 job, most presidents usually, you know, take the weekend somewhat off, right? And you know, you have him tweeting about Barack Obama, and I think Trey really summed it up, man. He just has this Excuse me, this inferiority complex when it comes to, being compared to anyone. Sorry. I really think it burned him up a couple weeks ago when everybody was standing outside to get a glimpse of Barack Obama getting coffee, right? Or whatever he was getting at Starbucks. I really think it burned him up, right? And it's no surprise to me that, a week after that, or maybe it was the same week, uh, he comes out with a tweet dissing Obama, right? And the rumor is that Obama's not returning his calls, hasn't returned his calls since he got in, because he's basically been assaulting former President Obama since he got in office, right? And I don't know. I honestly think President Trump should just be banned from Twitter. He does not need Twitter. He doesn't do himself any favors through Twitter. I think he needs to put the Twitter down and take the job seriously. I think that, him saying, first off, let's get into the merits of what this man said. This man said President Obama wiretapped him while he was still a candidate. Now, let me be clear to anybody that actually believes this. That is highly illegal for the president to do that. Even under the Patriot Act, it's still illegal for the president to wiretap anybody's phone, right? He has to get a warrant, and he doesn't literally get the warrant. The FBI, the CIA, whatever the organization that wants to tap his phone wants to tap the phone needs to get a warrant, right? So that is beyond Barack Obama, right? That's way beyond him. And to make a claim like that undermines the presidency, the country, because he's believing these Breitbart, Fox News conspiracy theories where apparently, the new theory now is Barack Obama decided to stay in D.C. so he could run the coup attempt on Donald Trump, right? The BS that people believe, right? And, it's just really beyond words and infuriating. And I'm not president. It's really beyond words that, this man can just randomly use Twitter weapon of suppression, right? He can say what he wants. He has people believe him. I'm glad that Congress is investigating, and they said that if this is not true, they're gonna call him out on his BS. That's what you have to do with people like Donald Trump. You gotta call them out loudly and embarrass them and make it so they never ever try and make baseless accusations again. Now, if there's evidence to suggest that Barack Obama, which I highly doubt, but if there's any evidence that he actually wiretapped him, then I'll be the first one to eat crow. But I highly doubt it. Trey said he doesn't have anything more to add, so I guess we'll move on. So, I was granted the unique opportunity this week. We'll talk about this now. To see a pro day for the first time this week, right? You guys know, you avid listeners of the show know that one of my main jobs and main aspirations is to be a sports reporter, and I am a sports reporter for a website. So I had the chance to on Wednesday see a pro day for the first time in my life. See a pro day and how it was done at Temple University, and it was amazing to see. To see those players work out, to see all those NFL scouts. I think Jim Haslett was there at the pro day that I was at. Didn't get a chance to meet him, but he was there. There was a bunch of people there. There were representatives from the Patriots there. There were people there just to see the workouts. I have a couple of the videos posted on my YouTube channel, so definitely go and see that on my YouTube channel. A couple players that really impressed me. Not that you would know any of these players' names unless you actually go to Temple or some things about college football and you're an avid college football fan. A couple players that really impressed me, other than the ones that you've heard of from Temple, the Hassan Reddicks, the Jahad Thomases, and the Dion Dawkins of the world. There were people like Avery Williams, who is uh, running mates with Hassan Reddick. Avery Ellis, his running buddy on the defensive line, and cornerback Kyrie Lucas. They really impressed me with their ball skills, their speed. A lot of the players who were at the Combine last week didn't really work out. Jahad Thomas ran a better 40 time than what he did, but they're very impressive. The main three people that you probably already heard of, they're very impressive. They were very impressive, right? But what Pro Day is for those players that you that have played with these players and you probably have seen on the field, and they really impressed me. So those three players to me, they were from undrafted to maybe late fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks, but at least they're gonna get drafted, right? So and they get to meet their dream most likely. They get to live it in Philadelphia, where they play at their backyard. It really shows because Trey and Trey might not remember, but there was a time when Temple football was the laughing stock of the tri-state area because, they just didn't have, they were not really a good football team. And now fortunes have reversed where they were more of a basketball school than a football school. They still are more of a basketball school than a football school, but the fortunes are reversed now, and the football team is up, and the basketball team is kind of in the middle now, right? And they're looking for a renaissance. And it really shows how far Temple has come. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on the Columbine, or not the Columbine. I don't know why I keep saying Columbine. So if you want to hear more of my thoughts on the Pro Day and what happened and who really impressed me, and you want me to go more in depth on those three players, definitely check out the article, WatsonSportsTakes.com, and Temple NFL Pro Day. But it was a really good thing, and more videos are coming. I definitely appreciate you guys for checking it out, rocking out with this podcast. And there are very unique opportunities that happen. I'll give Trey a chance because I know he wasn't there. If he has any questions for me, or he wants to talk about the Pro Day or Temple football, I'll let him go ahead. Trey, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, man. Something happened with my earphones.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I missed what you said. What you were saying.
I was talking about Pro Day. If you had any questions or you want to talk about Temple football, ask me anything about the Pro Day or who I saw or whatever. This is your opportunity.
Well, I've read your article.
Right.
So Hassan Reddick was there at the Pro Day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All three of their main players who will probably go in the first and second round were there. So Dion Dawkins, I don't think their offensive lineman, Dion Dawkins, he was there. He worked out for the scouts. So like the Panthers offensive line coach was there. He was working out all the
that's cool.
All the offensive linemen. Jim Haslett was there. The former Saints coach and Redskins coach. The Patriots executive vice president was there. A lot of people there. So, they a couple of people. So obviously, most of the workouts were done by the Eagles scouts and coaches because it was in Philadelphia. So, they ran the majority of the workout. But Hassan Reddick, he did do drills. He didn't run. Jahad Thomas was the only one who ran a 40 time again. But the main three players didn't really work out because they had done the workout at the Combine. At the Combine. Don't know why I keep saying Combine. But Yeah, and you know, uh, they did the shuttle run where they run through the shuttle and tackle.
Hmm.
They did ball pursuit drills. They did like a simulated pass coverage where they ran up and down the indoor facility and everything. They had a nice little workout, man. They put them through the paces, and then after they were done, we got a chance to interview them. So I did talk to Hassan Reddick. I actually asked him who his favorite player was. Right? He's got a very interesting story. Up until last year, he was a walk on. He didn't initially start at Temple, uh, or he didn't initially want to play football at Temple, but his mom and dad, more specifically his dad, encouraged him to try out at Temple, and so he
Huh.
he knew Coach Rule and or an assistant coach on Coach Rule's staff, and that's really how he got the workout to work out for him, and they really loved what he brought to the table because he tore. I want to get his injury right. I think he tore both his MCL and ACL on both of his knees, so he didn't think that he would, be able to play football. And he had gotten in the Temple, and he was just gonna, get his degree and keep going and not really look at football. But like I said, his parents really encouraged him because he's a local kid. He's from Upper Darby, I want to say. So he's a local kid. He lives about 15 minutes away and everything, and he did his thing, man. And that story is definitely going to get more attention when he gets drafted. But yeah, he star player. I asked him a question of who does he pattern his game after, and you might find this interesting. He patterns his game after Von Miller. So that told me right there that he's going to be
Hmm.
an adaptive. Because right now he's listed as a defensive lineman linebacker. So basically in that
Right.
mold of a J.J. Watt or a Von Miller.
Yeah,
And
like he can play on the line, pass rush, but then you can stand him up as a linebacker on the outside.
right,
Kind of like what we have right now in Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham is because Brandon Graham's natural position is defensive end,
right,
but in the 3-4 defense, we had him as a linebacker.
right. And actually, that's what he said. He said he's more of a defensive lineman and he's more comfortable in the 3-4. But like
Right.
he didn't give it away, but it sounds like the Eagles did talk to him. Because they can't talk about what teams they get interviewed by during the.
Right.
But he made it seem like the Eagles really did talk to him and they really have interest. Now, obviously, we know that the Eagles are probably going to go running back
Hmm.
because in this draft. But I
We do
wouldn't be
need pass
surprised,
rushers.
huh?
We do need a few more pass rushers,
Correct,
bigger guys.
correct. But I just think that because I really don't. I think Hassan Reddick, if he does go, it'll be in the later rounds, like in the mid 20s. I don't think he'll be a top 10 pick. I hope he's a top 10 pick, but you know what I mean, like because he's not in the mode of what most other teams in the top 10 need right now.
Hmm.
But if the Eagles can find a way to work back into the draft, and after they get Dalvin Cook or your boy McCaffrey or whoever they feel they need, I want them to get him. I think they need. I don't think there's any excuse for the Eagles to be in Philadelphia and not have at least one local player on their roster. That's how I feel. But that gets into something else. But it was a good experience, man. It was great. Like I said, I interviewed somebody else who talked about how
Jeez.
what
I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm watching the game at the same time I'm listening to you.
uh, just at the same time Temple was overlooked. They talked about that too, but Man, I'm telling you, Hassan Reddick, he gonna be a beast no matter what team he go for. He go on. I don't know if you had any more questions for me.
No, no, you. Oh, actually, yeah. Did anybody run? Nobody ran the 40.
Oh, everybody except those three. So they had 9 other seniors.
Right.
So
Okay.
everybody else ran the 40 except for Hassan Reddick and
Okay.
Dion Dawkins
Right.
because
But those are unofficial times, right?
no, those are
Are
official.
those considered? Okay. Okay.
The only one of the main three that ran a 40 again was Jahad Thomas because apparently
Okay.
he had an ankle problem last week, so he ran again,
Okay.
440, 450 again. So, which I know is slow for a running back, but you know that really doesn't mean anything. But yeah, so he was the only one out of those main three that ran. Everybody else did run. So
Okay.
yeah, it's not like nobody else ran.
That
Uh,
was it. That was my last question for you.
okay. Yeah, but Temple football, man. Like they had 40 scouts there, right? And it was amazing the type of scouts they had uh, because Alabama and a lot of other perennial powerhouse schools were having their pro day at the same time. So you wouldn't think that anybody would, it's Temple. Like, you gotta choose between Temple and Alabama. Obviously, Alabama has the more football ready talent than Temple. Temple, like other than Tyler McCavish, the only other player on Temple on the Temple squad that's playing in the NFL right now is Bernard Pierce, right? So you had that, and I was just amazed that all those scouts came. It just shows how Temple has, you know, risen from the ashes essentially. It's like I said, I think you can remember a time when Temple football was horrendous to watch, and now it's back on top. It's great. So, yeah, that was my little spiel on it. So I guess we're gonna go back to basketball then. So Trey, I know you've been itching to comment on this because I know you love what Russell Westbrook and will ride to the death for him. So go ahead and go in on Mark Cuban and those comments.
Well, like I was saying earlier, to me, wins matter more than stats. And in Russell Westbrook's case, he's averaging a triple double, and he's likely going to be the first player, since um, Oscar Robertson to average a triple double in a season, and only the second in NBA history. So, um, you know what he's doing is amazing. But you also have to think about the fact that his usage rate, the amount of time where he has the ball in his hands, it's got to be 35 or 40% just Russell Westbrook. The amount of the so um, the question is, do his stats um, meet? His stats clearly are not necessarily leading to. I mean, they're a playoff team, but they're not a team that is really going to do much in the playoffs, like you said, Colin. And so Mark Cuban comes out and says, he's not really an MVP candidate, and I can see where he's coming from. Um, Mark Cuban is a very outspoken person, so and he's a very controversial person. He'll come out and say stuff, and you're like, what? But I can see where he's coming from. And in my opinion, James Harden is the MVP. You can't forget about LeBron, but in my opinion, James Harden is the MVP because one, his natural position is the two guard, and he's playing the point guard. So, and they're winning. They're the third seed if I'm not mistaken, and they have a chance to maybe, as the Warriors continue to struggle without Kevin Durant, maybe they have a chance to push into that second seed, or even just in terms of record, push closer to the Spurs. Um, so uh, from that perspective, James Harden is doing similar. Is doing similar in terms of usage rate and um, actual numbers. Points, rebounds, and assists. As similar things as to Russell Westbrook, but there's a different outcome. And so, if you're thinking about what Mark Cuban is saying, stats are fine and dandy. James Harden has great stats. Now, I haven't read, I've only read a portion of his comments, but um, what Mark Cuban really is trying to say is, based on what I know, from what I've heard about what he said, he's saying, um, it's not necessarily stats that prove who the most valuable player is. It's, one, like, are you a do-it-all player, that type of thing, or what you're doing on the court correlating with winning? And clearly, what James Harden is doing on the court is correlating to wins. And I do think the Rockets have a little bit of a better team. They have one of the better benches in the team, especially. But I mean, Russell Westbrook is a superstar, and so is James Harden. And you got to do what you got to do and win games consistently. Now, I do believe that the West is a much harder conference than the East is, and it's a much more competitive conference. But I do tend to agree with the sentiment that maybe Russ is not the MVP and that James Harden or somebody else might actually be the MVP. Um, and it's unfortunate because um, he's gonna end the season, more than likely he's gonna end the season averaging a triple double, even if it's by zero point 0.1 rebounds or 0.1 assists or something like that. He's gonna end the season like that, and he has 40 some triple doubles I think this year, which is unheard of. But James Harden is doing the same thing essentially, and he's winning. He's winning more games. He's playing better than the Thunder are. Um, and so in that case, you have to give James Harden the MVP. The other interesting dynamic is, if you think back to 3 years ago or 2 years ago, um, the MVP race was between James Harden, LeBron James, or the main candidates were LeBron James, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. Um, and everybody was, all for James Harden winning it because I think that was his second year after the trade. The first year, I believe they kind of struggled, and then that second year, I think they got Dwight Howard, and then they had everybody was like, oh, I think they got the second seed or whatever, and everybody was like, oh my goodness, the Rockets, look at James Harden doing great things, and he ended up not winning it, and I think that was the year Kevin Durant won. Um, so this is not the first time that James Harden has been in MVP talk, and I think finally this year, he's gonna end up with the MVP.
I'll say this: this is going to be some type of record on this podcast. I'm agreeing with Trey once again. We've got three topics agreeing with each other, but I agree, but I disagree with Cuba's comment. I somewhat disagree with Cuba's comments, but I agree with the overall purpose. I can't really choose a side now, but I've elocuted I eloquated this earlier when I said that Russell Westbrook is right now. I've said this before on this podcast. I've said this about a couple of people. Like Russell Westbrook is the ultimate stat sheet stuffer. Like when you look at a stat sheet, he does everything. He gives you rebounds, he gives you assists, he gives you points, right? But like I said, stat sheet stuffers like Russell Westbrook in that mode of Allen Iversons, the Karl Malones, the Charles Barkleys, people who could stuff a stat sheet, but outside of scoring and what their team needed really didn't do much to help their team win when it mattered most, right? Now Allen Iverson, his scoring and his skills took the 76ers to a 2001 finals matchup with the LA Lakers, right? And we all know what happened there. For all of Allen Iverson's skill, he couldn't overcome the ultimate team that was the Los Angeles Lakers. We know this. He can only do it for one game. We've seen it with LeBron earlier in the year where he had nothing and he had to be a stat sheet stuffer. And ultimately he won 2 games, but he ultimately succumbed to the Warriors when it came to the better team and everything. A stat sheet stuffer can only take you so far, right? And I'm sick of people acting like because you stuff a stat sheet, that means you deserve to be MVP, right? To me, as I've said, wins matter most, and to me, wins also what dictates this is the team around you, right? The reason Steph Curry won back-to-back MVPs is because of the team around him, right? The team around him was so good, right, that Steph Curry stood out, and the fact that he was standing out and scoring 26 points while leading the league in three-pointers, becoming the league's best three-point shooter, the youngest three-point leader ever in the history of the NBA, right? At 25, 26 years old, whatever he was last year, right? LeBron James, when he was winning MVPs, it was based on the team around him. The last time he won, he was with the Miami Heat. And that was the year that literally Chris Bosh was hurt, Dwayne Wade was hurt, and LeBron had to carry it. But he still had good teammates around him, right? And that's what gets you rings. That's what helps you to win, the team around you. Really, this triple-double, while great, like I said earlier, it says more about the fact of how weak the Thunder are that Russell Westbrook can literally not take a break. He has to do it all. And that doesn't go right with him. That means he'll probably burn out. So Mark Cuban is right. Like, his regular season numbers are great. But if you have great regular season numbers and your usage rate is your usage rate is basically at 90%, and you're not really off the court, then yeah, you're the MVP, but ultimately you're not gonna go anywhere. If you base MVP off best player during the regular season, then yeah, you have to give it to Russell Westbrook. But if your definition is more than that, like Mark Cuban's is, and how mine is, and how most, and even I think Trey's is that we value wins. Mark Cuban has won a ring. He has won a ring. I have, unless you count virtual championships, I have not ever won a real life championship in my life, right? So I don't know what that feeling feels like, but I know what it takes to get there. You have to have a good team, right? And like I gave examples with LeBron James a couple years ago, with Allen Iverson, Charles Barkley, and others. Individual teams based on a sole individual only make it so far, right? Before they meet their match with a good team, with a good real ultimate team that's based on the sum of its part, not just one cog making the machine go, right? And this is why I like Russell Westbrook, but this is why I really criticize his move of staying with the Thunder. The reason why I criticize it isn't because of what he did. It's the fact of he's basically relegating himself to being what Allen Iverson was, what Charles Barkley was, what Carmelo Anthony was with the Nuggets. You're the number one player on a team that is not built for you. Like, if you think about the Thunder, they were built for Kevin Durant. They're not built for Russell Westbrook. They're not built for what he can do. That's why they have Victor Oladipo, Enes Kanter, and nothing else after that. They traded away Serge Ibaka. Kevin Durant left because of differences with Russell Westbrook and everything. Russell Westbrook was a great player, but he's hard to play with. He's a gun. He turns the ball over way too much. I'm not trying to bury him. I'm just telling you what he is. These are all facts, right? And I like him. I really do. I like him. I like what he brings to the table. But it needs to be said that, he's a gun. He has to do way too much. And, that's not his fault. That's his team's fault. But he enabled this team by re-signing for another 2 years when you had no business re-signing. Like, I have said that with him, MVPs matter, and I agree. Like I said, I'm getting off on a tangent here about Russell Westbrook. But he'll probably end up being second or first in the MVP voting. It obviously should be James Harden. That should be the MVP. Trey, I'm going to let you get back in here.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned like the idea of virtual championships, because like I play 2K a lot, right? And I play my career, and my player, if you know anything about 2K17, he's a playmaking point guard, right? And that's what Russell Westbrook is, like an athletic, all-around playmaking point guard, right? So he does everything, and that's what in my career. That's what my player does. I do everything. I rebound, get assists, score points, that type of thing, and try to play good defense. But what I found is like on the team that I'm playing on right now, my career, even in 2K, I'm not winning games. So that says something. In real life, it doesn't work, and in a video game, it doesn't work. Something needs to be changed. But as to Mark Cuban's comments, yeah, a lot of people would, their definition of who the MVP is that they say the MVP is the best player in the league. For that, whoever the best player in the league is the MVP. And if that's the case, then LeBron should probably win it every year. And I don't agree with that, because although LeBron is an MVP candidate, in my opinion, this year, and I think he should be an MVP candidate every year, just because of what he brings to the table and the impact he brings, his impact on the game. How you can take a Cleveland Cavaliers team that literally was the worst team one of the worst teams in NBA history, and turn them into an NBA Finals team. He's amazing, but unfortunately, Russell Westbrook, he kind of has relegated himself to being kind of like what you're talking about, Charles Barkley and Allen Iverson. And although he might be an MVP candidate, based on this whole stat sheet stuffer, and the fact that doesn't necessarily lead to wins, I can't see him being MVP either.
Yeah, ultimately, this is what it is. Trey talked about it, how it doesn't work in video games. It doesn't work in real life. Sure, it's gotten stat sheet stuffing has gotten Russell Westbrook and the Thunder to being the 6th seed in the West, right? But slowly declining. They at one point were 4th or 5th. Now they're slowly declining to 6th. might even be 7th or 8th before the season's over, right? So let's not kid ourselves. And I definitely think that Mark Cuban. Usually, I don't agree with him, but in this case, I think his comments were justified. They're right comments. Now, most people probably won't take it to be right until you explain it like Trey and I just explained it. He's a great player, but he's just not the definition of a great player is that you win, right? And like I said, if you win efficiently, like great players have great efficiency, they win and do it efficiently. And Russell Westbrook does not do it efficiently, right? When you're averaging 41 triple doubles, as I just said, that's a great stat, but that doesn't lead to you having a good playoff performance if your usage rate is so high that you have to get a triple double every night or your team won't be competitive. Like I said, this is what happens when you run out or your relationship isn't as strong as you thought it was with the actual best player on your team, and he runs to Golden State, right? If anything, I really just think that what the Thunder are looking like with Russell Westbrook and what he has to do, I really look at Kevin Durant as the most valuable player, if I'm being honest, because without Kevin Durant, look what Russell Westbrook has to do to even put the Thunder in the playoffs, right? He's got to do a triple-double literally every night. And I think what ultimately showed me that, Russell Westbrook doesn't deserve to be MVP is when he scored 58 points and his team still lost. All right? Now, to put that in perspective, Michael Jordan has done that multiple times. And the only reason, and he's only lost a game where he scored 58 points or more one time. One time. Now, I am pretty sure that there have been times when Russell Westbrook has put up triple doubles of 40-plus points, and the Thunder have still lost. Because like Trey said, and like I've said, an individual, a stat sheet stuffer, an Allen Iverson, a young LeBron James, Karl Malone type doesn't win you games, especially when they're by themselves. So is that necessarily a criticism of Russell Westbrook? No, it is a criticism of the Thunder organization and why have they not put anything around around him. And that's even with the addition of Taj Gibson and Doug McDermott and all the other players. Why? Give him more help. And then maybe he can be MVP, but he needs more help. So we're going to move on and talk about the Cavs' new addition, Andrew Bogut, not everybody, but a lot of people were praising. He injured his knee, proving to be the injury-prone person that he is. But I'm not going to throw aspersions on him. But Trey, what do you think about that? Andrew Bogut being injured. Do you think this really affects the Cavs' chances of repeating?
I think he was going to be a good piece for them. But I mean, we were talking about, before they signed Andrew Bogut or Darren Williams, there was never a time where anybody or most people, thought that it was going to be anybody other than the Warriors and the Cavs in the finals. If anything, now people are worrying about whether or not the Warriors, now that Kevin Durant is hurt, people are worried that maybe the Spurs or the Rockets can knock off the Warriors and make it to and not make it to the finals. So no, I don't think that not having Andrew Bogut really affects them that much because he got injured in their first game, so and I didn't expect him to bring that much impact onto the game, especially at his age. What they will miss is Kevin Love when they get to the playoffs. His offense. But no, yeah, I don't see how them not having Andrew Bogut is gonna like bring them major troubles come playoff time.
I I actually do see a little bit how they might have trouble without him. The only reason I say this is because Andrew Bogut brings something that Tristan Thompson doesn't bring, and that's the fact that Andrew Bogut, the one thing he does that Tristan Thompson doesn't do is he's a good passer. He can pass out of double teams and pass people open. Now I know some people will say, well, "What you need that for if you got LeBron James and Kyrie Irving?" That's true. You really don't need that, but that was what Cleveland was bringing Andrew Bogut in to do, to help them prepare for the Warriors and try to give Tristan Thompson a very capable backup and everything. That's what he was there to do. He was there to be Tristan Thompson's backup, pass the ball, get open if need be, get some rebounds, keep the Warriors away, right? Because he's a versatile big man. Andrew Bogut is, really good. He's just injury prone. Do I think the Cavaliers will miss him that much? Probably not. But I think that Andrew Bogut does a lot of different things that don't show up in the stat sheet. I feel as though you know he it's not going to make that much of a difference. But I definitely think that his passing ability, his ability to be a capable backup for Tristan Thompson is what the Cavaliers are going to miss. And I think that once Kevin Love come back, if Kevin Love comes back, I think they'll be all right. But Trey is definitely right. They are going to miss Kevin Love's offense, just like the Warriors are missing Kevin Durant's offense, and how his offense covered a multitude of of inaccuracies with the Warriors. Mainly the fact that apparently this year the shot of Steph Curry decided to disappear, right? So it's very interesting to see where this shakes out, because much like San Antonio is on Golden State's heels, people are overlooking Boston. Boston actually just beat Cleveland last night, and they're 2 games behind Cleveland for the number one spot in the playoffs. Now, will they get it? Probably not, but I like seeing competition in the East. So, Trey, I'm gonna let you get back in because I think that's all I have to say on that.
Oh yeah. I was not saying that Andrew Bogut doesn't bring anything to the table. I was just mentioning that in terms of like, does not having Andrew Bogut hurt their chances of getting to the finals? No, because one, he got hurt in his first game, and people were we were already expecting him to make it to the finals without Andrew Bogut. So from that perspective, that's what I was saying. But yes, I do think that Andrew Bogut brings something to the table. Ironically, Andrew Bogut is a former Warrior. So maybe he can, even though he's not on the court, maybe he can give him some, inside tips on how to beat the Warriors. Huh.
True. Well, I don't think I didn't think you were saying that. I just felt the need to say that, like, he is a good passer and everything, but like you said, it really doesn't matter because he got injured basically on the first day. So uh, that is what it is. Our next segment would have been whenever Matt gets on here, the baseball update. But right now, I guess we're gonna move into our next little segment. Well, I'll save that. We're gonna switch topics a little bit and go to football. So I know Trey is also itching to talk about this. Hashtag Kylo was right. Uh, Go ahead, Trey. Talk about our Eagles and their free agency moves.
Well, free agency, there's always a lot of speculation. Thursday was the beginning of the new year as well as the opening of free agency. And our Philadelphia Eagles and our front office, um, they did some big things in one day. They signed Alshon Jeffrey to a 1 year deal. Um, and I believe he got the most money. He got the most money for the short term deal. And what will likely happen, as long as things work out this year, is that they'll give him a long term deal next year. Um, because some more cap space will open up next year. I believe Jordan Matthews will be a free agent. So they're gonna have a decision to make with Jordan Matthews. Nelson Aguilar will be a free agent. So that's 7 million or so, and then another 4 or 5 from Jordan Matthews. So that's 12 million right there that will open up in cap space. Plus, Jason Peters, who could potentially retire after this coming season. That's another, I believe, 9 that should clear up in cap space. So I love the acquisition of Alshon Jeffrey because I think he fits well into the team, as well as the acquisition of Torrey Smith, and I think that was a very good deal for the Eagles. They didn't have to pay him too much. I think they got something. It's like a 3 year, $15 million contract. So they're not paying him, nowhere near top money. They would have had to give Deshaun Jackson something like 8, and they're only paying Torrey Smith 5. And I think Torrey Smith is actually a little bit more of a well-rounded receiver. So, you got a really good deal with Torrey. And they also picked up Chance Warmack, who's a very good guard coming from Tennessee. And he's a younger guy, too. So that, and ironically, that was one thing that we thought that they might, one need that they might address in the draft, in the later rounds. But they've already started addressing that in free agency. The last thing that I want to say is that they have to address cornerback. I love that they're trying to do this like fixer-upper thing with the receiving core. And our receiving core literally went from like well below average to average, or even probably above average at this point, just because you got two. I think Torrey Smith has at least had 1 Pro Bowl. I don't know if Alshon Jeffrey has one just because he's been injured. But Alshon Jeffrey is a proven good receiver, so is Torrey Smith, and then you got Jordan Matthews, who's still a solid receiver. So we've gone from well below average to at least at the very very least just average. I'd say that our receiving core is now above average, but we'll wait and see in terms of what they do, in terms of getting a cornerback, and then also what they do in the draft. But I give them a B plus, I say, or maybe even A, for what they did. The thing is, and I do this every time the Eagles do anything good. I'm always skeptical at first because I don't want to get my hopes up. We always go back to that dream team year. We signed all these players who were supposed to be this and supposed to be that, and this team was supposed to be able to make it to the Super Bowl and all that, and things didn't pan out. So I'm happy and I'm excited about what our offense can do next year, especially if we're able to get Dalvin Cook or even Latavius Murray. That would, I would be ecstatic. At the same time, though, like Alshon Jeffrey has if he's suspended 1 more time, I believe, if he's in the same situation as Lane Johnson, and he's also shown to be very injury prone. Torrey Smith hasn't had a Pro Bowl year in 2 years. Last year, he didn't have a very good season. That had to do with the fact that the 49ers really just sucked. But even the year before that, he didn't have a great year. So, what if Alshon Jeffrey gets hurt and Torrey Smith doesn't have a great season? These acquisitions don't look as good as we thought they were.
So I think this is more like let's be excited, but also have some caution in terms of our expectations of what this means for the team, because I don't believe that just because we added two solid receivers that all of a sudden we're going to win the NFC East and go 12-4 and make the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. That's just not realistic. That's what I think. I don't know. I know what you think, Kylan, about at the very least. I know you think the acquisition of Alshon Jeffrey is like the greatest thing on earth. But go ahead.
No, it's not the greatest thing on earth. It's not the greatest thing on earth, man. It's an upgrade that we haven't had in years, man. We haven't had a very, very good wide receiver like this that's that young. I mean, granted, he's 26, but who's that young since Terrell Owens, right? And Terrell Owens was old when he came to the Eagles, right? So, we haven't had, if you think about it, that was the last good receiver we had was Terrell Owens. And now we have two really good wide receivers. One with a Super Bowl ring in Torrey Smith because he won one with the Ravens, right? And, you have all that, and that's amazing. And it's a bargain for $5 million a year. So, if nothing else, if something happens to Alshon Jeffrey, then we have somebody who's used to being a number one wide receiver in Torrey Smith. And we basically have a three-headed monster. Now, I like Jordan Matthews. I think they'll re-sign him. I noticed that, Benny Logan is still a free agent. I'm guessing that's why the Eagles got the free agents out the way. And that's why they're working so hard to try and shift Michael Kendricks and Jason Kelce, is so they can be able to. I would assume that the next big free agent move is signing Benny Logan, right? And so for the Eagles, and I would assume that they'll add some cornerback depth and add some cornerback depth and add wide receiver and running back in the draft, or cornerback, wide receiver, running back in the draft. I just feel it's a good free agency just because they addressed the number one concern. The number one concern we had, and we said on this podcast, was that by the end of free agency, they needed to have a number one wide receiver. And they have two right now. They have two number one wide receivers. They have Torrey Smith, who can play his more natural second wide receiver, but that's what he was the number one wide receiver in Baltimore when they won a championship. He was the number one wide receiver in San Francisco. And the crazy stat is actually he has the second highest yards after catch yards in the league. Only beaten, he has 17 yards per catch. And Deshaun Jackson has 17.2 yards per catch. That's the average, right? And so he obviously does something right to be second behind Deshaun Jackson in something, right? And I just looked at it like these two. My one problem with Alshon Jeffrey is, other than the fact that he's been injured a little bit in his career, it's also that he suffers from the same problem Lane Johnson does of not being able to pass a drug test, right? Now, they both need to pass the drug test, and that needs to be in their contracts. And it just so happens that Jordan Matthews and Alshon Jeffrey are both in their contract year, right? Now, I fully expect the Eagles to re-sign Jordan Matthews and have him in his more natural position in the slot as the third receiver. But right now, we have a basketball team at wide receiver. All of our wide receivers, except for Nelson Aguilar, are all 6 foot something, right? Alshon is 6'3". Torrey Smith, to my knowledge, I think is about 6'2", 6'3" as well. And Jordan Matthews is 6'2", 6'3" as well. So we have three basketball players for wide receivers, right?
Torrey Smith is 6 foot.
Oh, he's just 6 foot.
But 6 foot for wide receivers, that's a very good height.
Yeah. So He's 6 foot. Jordan Matthews is 6'2", 6'3" as well. And you have that, and this is why I didn't really like the fact that people were saying we need Deshaun Jackson back. Those days are gone, guys. We're not in the short receivers anymore. We're back where we belong. Tall, aggressive, wide receivers who can go get it. The one knock on Deshaun Jackson, even when he played here, was his refusal to go over the middle because he was so short, right? And that's no knock on him. Protect the main investment, which is you, right? But we're not about that anymore. The days of short people running around in the Eagles offense, besides Darren Sproles, is gone, y'all. It's gone, man. The days of Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, and LaShawn McCoy running around, running the Eagles offense is over. The days of short people running our offense are over, right? Now we're in the tall. Now we're in the more revolutionized league where everything is. You have a really really tall. You have one or two really really tall wide receivers and a good tight end and a good running back, which we don't have unless you count Darren Sproles. And that's what we need, right? That's what I want the Eagles to address next. But they're probably going to sign Benny Logan, I would assume, or they'll franchise tag him. They'll do something, right? And so that's what the next big move is. And I'm excited for the Eagles. Like I said, they got two good players, and all it really took was getting rid of. If you really think about it, they added two wide receivers, and all they lost was Connor Barwin. And I know people like Connor Barwin, but that's a good deal to me. Like we got two really good wide receivers, and all we really gave up was Connor Barwin. Trey, I'm gonna let you get back in.
I didn't really have much else to say. I just wanted to comment on the last thing that you said about Connor Bowen. I didn't really think about that. The fact that, I mean, in one way, it was like it was almost like a trade because they cut Connor Bowen and then they signed Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey, and I mean, although Connor Bowen I mean, his stats on the field had gone down last year compared to what he did 2 years ago. And his impact in the city off the field was great. So, but yeah, I think them adding Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey and only having to give up Connor Barwin was a it was a bargain, really. That's really all I can say.
And the other news that we forgot about was they also got somebody from Alabama, Warnock. I'm gonna let you talk about him. That's you.
Yeah, Chance Womack. Yeah,
That's you.
he's a second year guard. He's a real big guy, black guy. He went to college at Alabama, but I believe this coming season will be his second season in the league. Now he was a high draft pick 2 years ago, and things didn't pan out as well as they would have liked to in that offense with the Titans. He's a big, strong guy, and I think he'll fit well into the offense. If he can, I think one of the things with him was, if I'm not mistaken, he's about 300. He's about the same size as Jason Peters. And I think part of that was he was, they just needed him to lose a little bit of weight. And based on what we know about the Eagles know how to get, they know how to find offensive linemen who can move and get upfield and block. So if they can teach him how to be a good teach him to block and get upfield, that type of thing, in terms of run blocking, and then also could lose a couple pounds to be able to move more freely. I think he can be a good addition and potentially will be a starter on the team at the left guard position, if I'm not mistaken, because Brandon Brooks would be our starting right guard.
Yeah, I don't know enough about offensive linemen. That's Trey and Kennan's department about the offensive linemen. But I'm happy that the Eagles got a offensive lineman. I would rather it have been a center or a person who can take over for Jason Kelsey. But I guess that'll come in the draft. I guess. But they also re-signed Steven Wisniewski to a 3-year deal. I think that'll be good now. If they can just find a way to get rid of Jason Kelsey. I mean, apparently he's more hard to get rid of than my boy Jalil Okafor. And I like Jalil Okafor. I'm indifferent on Kelsey, even though thank you, Jason Kelsey, for following me on Twitter. I really do like you, but in this case, it's nothing against you personally. It's just that you can't block a cold, so you need to go on the better pastures. Uh, I like Jason, but like I said, it's time for him to go. And I know the Eagles have said that just because they're adding offensive linemen doesn't mean they're getting rid of Jason Kelsey. But it sure seems like it, especially now that they have re-signed Steven Wisniewski, and he's a center / offensive lineman, but he's more of a center. And you have the local connection with Penn State, so yeah, it seems like Jason Kelsey's days are numbered. So we shall see. I assume that there will be a draft day trade or draft day releases where both Kelsey and Kendricks find a way to not be on the roster anymore to make room for the number one running back, and I would guess the number one offensive lineman, the number one center, I would assume. Now, again, I love college football. I watch college football every Saturday it's on, but I don't really pay attention to the offensive linemen. That is Kenan and Trey. They tell me about offensive linemen. I don't pay attention to offensive linemen that aren't Eagles. Disclaimer, that aren't Philadelphia Eagles. So, expect the offensive lineman report from those two, Trey and Kenan. But going along with that, since we're alluding to it, Trey, what do you think the Eagles will do with Jason Kelsey? Trey, you there? Trey?
Yeah, I'm here. My phone was acting up. I'm sorry. I don't know what they're gonna do. That's interesting that you say that Jason Kelsey followed you on Twitter. That's pretty cool, actually. But um, I hope that they can kind of do something similar to what they've done with Connor Bowen. They cut him to clear cap space, but then was able to pick up somebody else. The thing is that there's really no other centers on the market. So I think the best situation right now is to keep Jason Kelsey for now, and probably I would use him in a trade on draft night, or or some trade before before it's too late, and it's like, okay, similar, and it's ironically it is a similar situation to Jalil Okafor, but I think the best move for them is to try to trade him, because I think there are some teams out there that would take him, and that do a team like Denver, they need offensive linemen. They've struggled tremendously on their offensive line, and you could potentially get somebody like you could do like a Jason Kelsey for like a Derek Wolfe or something like that, or maybe like a third, maybe a third or fourth round draft pick or something like that, just to clear up cap space. And then you have an opportunity to draft somebody, use that fourth or fifth round pick or whatever you get for him. Because what I don't want them to do is cut him and then not be able to replace him. it's like it would have been it would have been one thing if we had cut Connor Bowen and then didn't sign Torrey Smith or Alshon Jeffrey. Then I would have been like, okay, guys, what was the point of cutting a guy who could potentially still be a depth guy? If you're not gonna go and sign these wide receivers to strengthen our receiving core. So whether they cut him or they trade him, whatever they do, they need to make sure that they find a reliable replacement for him, because although I do like Wisniewski, who can play the center position, he's not the answer. So that's my thoughts.
Well, honestly, I already think they have the answer. Like I said, they can cut Kelsey, save $4 million, because if they don't cut him by the draft, they owe him $8 million. So they gotta cut him or trade him before the draft. So if they do that, then they will. They will. They have Wisniewski, who's serviceable at least for. They have Wisniewski locked down for 3 years, and you don't re-sign a center for 3 years unless you plan on letting them play for 3 years, however many millions of dollars they have him signed for. So I think that they'll get rid of Kelsey. The Eagles are just trying to save face publicly. I think they'll release him, and then after they release him, they will draft a center in the draft. Not like going along with what Trey said. I don't know any centers in the draft myself, so I'm not even going to hazard a guess to who they will draft. But everybody has said that the Eagles will draft at least one offensive lineman this draft. So I assume that they will use that one offensive lineman pick on the center, and then proceed to get a running back in the first round, wide receiver in the second round, because they do have 2 second-round picks. So a wide receiver in the second round, and probably an offensive lineman or center in the second round as well. Then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, you can just go for it and get what you want. You can get another wide receiver, you can get a tight end, whatever you feel like you need after that. And I think that, to answer the question, I think that what they'll do with Jason Kelsey is cut him, because I don't think there's a market for him right now. I think they'll cut him. Unless Trey has anything more to add, which I think he's good. We'll move on to our other one. Basically, I guess our final Eagles topic for the day is do you think is Carson Wentz a good recruiter? Go ahead, Trey.
I don't know the details of whether Carson Wentz was talking with Alshon Jeffrey or Torrey Smith or whatever. The details of the ins and all that type of stuff. But just based on Carson Wentz and his ability to play football, like his promise as a player, yes, he's a good recruiter, because people see that he's a promising future as potentially a Pro Bowl, a very formidable, very, very good Pro Bowl receiver for a long time in the league. And so players are buying into that. And so from that perspective, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing in any other sport. When there's a veteran player or any player who's looking for a new team, they're more willing to come to a team that may not be a playoff team, but has good young talent, and they want to be a part of that. So from that perspective, yeah, I think Carson Wentz has shown to help the Eagles out, because people want to play with him and they think he's a good quarterback. So, I mean, if you want to say that makes him a good recruiter, then yeah.
I definitely think he is a good recruiter in that I think he does a very good job of recruiting. I think that I think that his work going along with what Trey said. I think his work ethic and his skills on the field, and especially the first half of his season and the second half of his season, dictated and showed how good he is. And I think that, people see that. Alshon Jeffrey said he talked to Carson Wentz before, after making, I guess, the timeline depends on who you talk to. But, they were texting back and forth, and he was saying that, he thought that Carson Wentz would be a future MVP. And he said that, Carson Wentz said he doesn't care about the MVP. He wants to win a championship. And I admire that. If that's true, and I have no reason to think that that's not what Carson Wentz said, because he said as much, earlier this year when he told the Eagles front office that they better do something because he doesn't like being home in January. I respect that. This is also why I respect Jalil Okafor as well. And I know I know Trey is rolling his eyes somewhere because I know he's probably all like Carson Wentz, Jalil Okafor comparisons. Yes, I am in this respect. The 76ers were told the same thing by Jalil Okafor, that they had 4 years before his contract was up, really 3 to 4 years to make it to the playoffs, or he wasn't going to resign, right? And Carson Wentz hasn't said that yet, but that's basically what he's saying. He's telling the Eagles that, you really only have me for the length of my contract, and I need to make playoffs if you want me to stay and actually be your quarterback forever. And I like that. I like when players put pressure on the front office to do their job. And I love the moxie. I really do. I love the balls on Carson Wentz, and I think that he will flourish in Philadelphia. I think that he, Alshon, Torrey Smith, Jordan Matthews, and hopefully Dalvin Cook and Zach Ertz can bring a championship to the city. And I really do. He even said himself that Philadelphia needs a championship. And if Carson Wentz, Alshon Jeffrey, and the rest of them can do that, they will go down in history as the best thing that ever happened to Philadelphia. Yes, I said it, and I just it probably won't happen this year, but I'm going to pump the brakes on that for this year. I definitely think the Eagles, right now on paper, if you held a gun to my head, I'd probably say they'd make the playoffs just because you don't have that 3-headed, 6-foot beast of Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith, and Jordan Matthews and not win at least 10 games and hopefully make the playoffs, right? So, that's what I'm saying. I'll say they'll be a playoff team. Now, will they make the Super Bowl? Probably not. But we'll see. I'm going to temper expectations because I think that needs a year, especially if they get a rookie running back to really develop. But, I think that it'll work, and that they'll at least make the playoffs with, without knowing who they'll draft, with Alshon, Torrey, and Jordan Matthews, and Zach Ertz, and Carson Wentz as the main focus of the offense. So I think that, I think Carson Wentz is a great recruiter. I like his attitude. I like the fact that he wants to win championships. And I just love the fact that he's such a competitor. Matt, before you go, we're on Carson Wentz and the Eagles. So if you want to talk about free agency and how Carson Wentz is a good recruiter, or if you think Carson Wentz is a good recruiter of talent or not, you go right ahead.
First of all, how y'all doing? Secondly, as far as recruiter concerned, they may have little or something to do with it. But with that being said, this was more about, this is what we need. We need receivers that can catch the damn ball. Put it this way. We're seeing so many. The Philadelphia Eagles led the league, or among the league leaders, in drop passes, and that has been an ongoing issue, not just this season, but in seasons past, going as far back as Chip Kelly. This and tack on the fact that this team doesn't get open very well, and the offensive line is pretty much has been a rotating mess with injuries and suspensions. So what the Eagles did what they were supposed to do. They addressed a need, particularly a wide receiver, and they got not one but two receivers, and not only Alshon Jeffrey, but also in Torrey Smith. I'm like, golly. I'm like, okay. You put your money where your mouth is. Oh, by the way, you cleared up cap space, and unfortunately for us Eagles fans, Carter Barwin was a salary cap casualty. Sorry, but cleared that space up. Oh yeah, by the way, we got a guard. We got a guard from Tennessee. So it is. I'm more interested now. Now you have those components taken care of. What the Eagles going to do as far as the draft is concerned, which is the need at running back and the secondary. But this to go as far as a playoff team right now, we're about a few pieces. We're about a piece or two away. I think 2 away from at least thinking about playoff, because you got to deal with what the Giants and their receiving core. You got to deal with the Cowboys and their receiving core. Oh, by the way, and their offensive line as well. So if you look at it from a big, grand scheme of things, the NFC East is going to be very competitive, minus the Washington franchise that is languishing. Bye-bye Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson. So, as far as what the Eagles are doing, so far they're making the right moves and addressing the fact that Carson Wentz progress, and the only way he needs to progress if he has better receivers, a better line, particularly in the guard positions, and also he needs a running game. And we've seen when he has a running game, his game, Carson Wentz's game elevates. He has a little time in the pocket. He's not getting banged up. He's not throwing 60 passes a game. He's literally, he needs a running game. And that's the one thing that the Eagles are going to have to address, particularly in the draft. I forgot his name, but I think it's Cook, who's the Eagles not going to get him. You can forget that because of where they're positioned at. But as far as recruiting is concerned, I mean, like, look, he said was it Kyle? You reiterated earlier that he does not want to be home in January. He wants to play for something. In this case, the Super Bowl. He wants to win, and his desire to win. I mean, here in Philadelphia, I think we are sick and tired of all 4 teams going through the process at one time. And right now, this Eagles football team is the closest thing to a championship right now. So with that being said, this is the beginning of the offseason right now. We didn't get to the draft yet. So let's see what happens as far as how the Eagles make their moves in the draft. So far, free agency, they've done a good job on paper, but let's see what happens as this progresses, because this is March, early March. Okay, April, May, June, July, August. We ain't got barely 6 months. Not even that. About 6 months. So let's see what this team does and how they reconstruct this team. And which, by the way, I'll be honest with you, why did they not cut? They should have cut Jason Peters and just ate that contract, or just say, "Hey, take a pay cut or something." I don't know, but that's just me, though. As Andy Reid would say, time's yours.
All right. Trey, do you got anything to add before we move on? No, guess not. It is what it is. We're gonna move right along then. To our one Sixers topic today. Is it time for the 76ers to shut down Jalil Okafor and really, really tank and get rid of their best offensive? Well, not get rid of him, but shut him down like they did last year. Go ahead, Trey. Well, Trey's mic's been suffering. Go ahead, Matt.
You're telling me to shut down Jalil Okafor? Have you lost your mind? No, don't shut him down. Let him play. Look, the Sixers has been too cautious with injuries with both Embiid and Simmons. Don't you dare! Don't you dare shut him down. I mean, look, the man has to progress some way, somehow. And you know what? This is emergency tank mode. I need this team to lose as many games as humanly possible at this point. But to shut him down is a very bad idea. In fact, if you were to shut that man down, in my opinion, you would regress, not just as a player, but as a team. Because you need to see what you need as far as addressing the needs for the draft and in free agency as well. So here you go. You from what I've seen, Okafor right now is the man. I mean, let's call it for what it is. Two of the men aren't playing. You traded one guy, and what you got left? Okafor. That's what you got left. I mean, Sarge is basically a bench player starting right now. Really, let's call it for what it is. So this team again, it's organized. It's a mess. It's just a mess. Let's call it for what it is. It's a mess. To shelve Jahlil Okafor is a bad decision. It's a bad move. Let the season play out. It's almost over. I mean, barring any real major injury threat, I don't see one. There isn't really one in the distant future. So let him play. Bottom line, time's yours, gentlemen.
Trey, it's all you. Trey, you there?
Can we get an ABP on Clarence the third?
No,
Keep it moving, bro.
I'll go there. Definitely. I don't think it's time to shut down Jalen Okafor. I was just asking that question because I saw an article in the Daily News about why they should shut him down because of he was sitting a couple games due to his knee injury, and I think, huh? And I think just like that, I think they should just let him play, let him progress, decide what you're gonna do with him, because that's your healthiest player on the roster right now, and more than likely your best player until Ben Simmons comes back and until Joel Embiid proves to you that he can last more than 20 games. So, I think that I've said enough about Jalil Okafor, so I'll just leave it at this. Jalil Okafor is our best player. Sure, he has his defensive faults, but those can be fixed. And you shouldn't be shutting him down for anything unless he breaks his leg again. So I'm gonna give Trey one more chance. Trey, you there? Huh. Maybe he's sleeping or something. What we gonna talk about next? Oh, let's talk about Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon. He's the Oklahoma running back who beat up the girl in the restaurant. Really didn't beat her up, but punched her in the face. It was a one hit, then knockout type of thing. I'm not making light of it. I'm just telling you what actually happened with that. And uh, so a couple of teams went and saw him. He had a good pro day. I think they said he ran a 4.3 or 4.4, and he's proven that he may be the best running back. But I guess the question is to you guys, or to Matt as well, is it worth it to draft Joe Mixon? So if the Eagles drafted Joe Mixon, would you have a problem with it?
Look, what's it? What's his name? Tony Dungy said it best. Do not draft because of character. That's the one thing you don't want to do. Look, put it this way. You can go ahead and your job will go ahead or ask for a background check. We'll go through background check, FBI clearance, if you work for children, child abuse clearance. And they all come up clean, right? Chances are, okay, the process continues. If they see a blip, chances are you either won't be hired or they'll ask a question. With that being said, was he charged? What is he? Does this man have a record of domestic violence, domestic abuse? Does this man have a record? And if the answer is no, then what the hell are we talking about? Yes. Now, mind you, the one thing I will not take light is domestic abuse at all, because abuse is abuse no matter how you slice it. And I do feel as though every person has to make a living in some capacity. I don't care if you run up and down the field for 16 games after the season and you making a wad of money. Or the fact that you washing dishes somewhere. I don't care. You're in America. You need to make some type of living to literally, do what you got to do to live in society. With that being said, will his draft stock drop? Yes, it will. But you should not draft because of his character, in my opinion. Your goal is to see to it that you put together the best squad that you can to get to the promised land, which is the Super Bowl, and win it all. That is the goal. That is the plan. There's no way around it. Well, why don't you finally get a better man who don't? But I don't care if it's a Christian man, Muslim man, a violent man, or this, that, and third. I don't care if he's gay. Okay, as long as he can do the job, do what he's supposed to do, conduct himself the way he's supposed to conduct himself, and literally get this team to where it needs to go and to operate functionally and fully, I don't care what you do. As long as you do not have as long as you have not some type of record, why should we care? I think as long as you can do the job, that's all I care about. Do not draft because of character. Bottom line. Because you never know that if you put that person, draft that kid or that man into your team, and one of his teammates sees that, they can mentor him in some capacity, in some type of way, or put him in some type of program to where it's you need to conduct yourself accordingly. You need to conduct yourself in a way to where it's you're among men now. This isn't college. You're among men, and you have the right personnel to do that. By all means, draft that guy. If and only if he can get you to where you need to go. Bottom line, point blank simple. Time's yours. And I forgot to drop the mic, but dropping the mic doesn't work anyways.
All right. On Joe Mixon, I think that. Oh, there he is.
Hey guys, sorry.
What happened, man? Oh. So we're on Joe Mixon, Trey. So you got an opinion about Joe Mixon. So the question is it worth it to draft Joe Mixon?
Well, I was actually I'm a fan of Joe Mixon. I liked him even before the whole situation with the one girl had before that all happened, and I think people that situation happened now. I think 3 years ago now, and it based on he did like a little press conference. I think it was this year or last year sometime. Officially apologizing and everything for the whole situation and. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with him, but I don't think he's a long-term answer at running back, and I think that's what the Eagles need. They need, a long-term running back. You can give the ball to, 20, 22 times a game, and is a long-term answer. So, if you want to bring him in as, that just kind of like a change of pace back, that type of thing, then yeah, I'm all for it because I think he's a very good running back. And I think that whole situation is behind him. But I mean, I don't see him being the future number one back of your team.
I think he is a great change of pace back. I think that Oh, were you done, Trey?
Yeah, that was all I had. Yep.
Oh, okay, cool. So I think he is a good change of pace back. Obviously, I don't support domestic violence, but going on with what Matt said, I don't think he was indicted on it, but I would have some cause for concern about that because I don't want this to turn to a Ray Rice situation where we have early indications that you might have something and then you get caught on video again. Now I know the great Tony Dungy said, "Don't draft on character," but Mama ain't raised no fool either. So when you put in money, millions of dollars into somebody, whether it happened 3 years ago or not, you need to do your due diligence on what if anything, because obviously if you've seen the video, you know that there was an exchange of words between the two of them. So I need to know, basically what I need to know from him is, can I trust him in public? And there are a lot of NFL players that you can't trust in public, so he wouldn't be the first one to have this problem. But there is such a thing to be said for somebody saying, if this happens again, it was clearly shown to you in college, and that's what I would be afraid of if I was in the NFL team. Does that mean you don't draft him? No, it doesn't mean don't draft him, but it means you got to have some strong assurance that this won't happen again, that this was truly a mistake. You can trust him in public. Now, yes, he does deserve to make a living. Matt does make a huge point. But is he worth the headache, though? It depends on, like I said, can you trust him in public? The next question after that is, as Trey said, do you think he is the long-term answer? For the Eagles, he's not he had to split time in Oklahoma. He's not a every down back. And we already have 4 not every down backs on our roster right now. We need a possession running back. And there's 3 possession running backs in this draft. Fournette, McCaffrey, and Dalvin Cook. If your name isn't that, is it one of those 3 names, then you're not worth consideration in the first round until later on in the draft. So The Eagles need either one of those three and need to build from that. Joe Mixon doesn't even need to be considered unless you're thinking about a special teams player or a dual threat running back who you can put in the field. Right? He may be good, and he may end up being the one of the top running backs in the draft. But for right now, you just need to keep him at arm's length until you have those assurances. That's what I say. Ty, yeah.
I understand your sentiment and your point on the fact of, you want to do your due diligence and your homework, which is true. But like I said earlier, you want to make sure that your team is in the right position to when you draft him, you have the right guys and the right program and the right whatever you got for your team / franchise, that you want to make sure that on day one, this here's the criteria, here it is, this is what you got to do, here's the benchmark, that's it. Anything less than that is unsatisfactory. And we have seen this year in, year out. Every year, it's always been concerns with character, and be honest, and we've seen this time and time again. It's I don't want to say the word rare, but you do not hear a peep out of many players who has these so-called character issues. You don't hear a peep from them because generally they realize, okay, this is the real thing. You're getting paid for this, and if you get cut, you actually lost your job. You don't have a job. That's reality. And it's not just, okay, I'm playing in the NFL and making X amount of dollars, which is great, but this is your job. This is your livelihood. Once you are cut or released or your contract's been terminated, you are a free agent. In other words, you are not working. Bottom line. So many players do fall in the cracks. Others succeed. But when you hear these character players, these players who have character issues, after 3-4 years, you don't hear much of a peep from them. Really, you really don't. So that's, to me, so part of it is much ado about nothing. The rest of it. But other than that, as long as you have the players and the program and the right mentors in place to receive said whatever, I guarantee you won't hear. We will not hear people from him in the next 3-5 years. And by the way, yes, he is a change of pace back. So therefore, so it's most like a third down back, probably a short distance runner, whatever the case may be. Short distance, short distance, but still, within 3 to 5 years, we're not gonna hear much from him anyway. So part of it is much to do about nothing, but at the same time, it's like if your system and your mentorship is in place and everything else, I'll guarantee you 3 to 5 years, you ain't gonna hear nothing.
Nah, man. With him, you got to do your due diligence, man. I understand your point, but in recent years, that quote of Tony Dungy's, you can throw that right back. It is a prime example. There are a bunch of Cowboys players right now that they drafted in like the last 3 years. They had character issues, failed drug tests in college, still failing drug tests in the NFL. They got a couple of players. What's the boy name who couldn't play? And I said would have been the difference if he played. Randy Gregory, he didn't play. Rolando McClain, he didn't play. Now he's with somebody else. He died.
Yeah.
Huh?
You're right.
Now he's with somebody else. There's a bunch of players that have had character issues in the last 2 or 3 years that they drafted anyway and haven't played a lick in 3 years. So No, 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 no. You got to be sure that these people can play. Like, I'm pretty sure the Eagles would have done their due diligence. They would have put a must-pass drug test in Lane Johnson's contract because I love that man to death, but he needs to stay off the meth. Hey, I made a rhyme. I love that man to death, but he needs to stay off the meth. So, like, you know,
But it's Dallas. But it's Dallas, though. It's a circus down there. It's Jerry World. I mean, Dallas to some degree is dysfunctional. It's functional, but it's dysfunctional. But it's functional. Cleveland, dysfunctional. New York Jets, dysfunctional. The Cincinnati Bengals, dysfunctional. Those Buffalo, okay, Buffalo Bills under Rex Ryan, dysfunctional. Now it's Sean McDermott, which I think I read, I can't remember, Twitter or somewhere else, to where though Sean McDermott say, you know what, we're getting rid of the video games, we're getting rid of all the other stuff with the exception of the ping pong table. To get rid of the stench that is Rex Ryan. Okay? Those teams that I listed, and probably some more, oh yeah, Washington Redskins too. Dysfunctional, extreme. Their program is not built to handle that much chaos.
right, but listen, in retrospect, all those teams that you mentioned, only two have had players that they drafted that don't play. You had Johnny Manziel, and then I just named about 4 or 5 Cowboys, and I would name 6 if you count Greg Hardy, but they didn't draft him. So it's not the first time that you have people with this type of stuff. Greg Hardy was the only one with domestic violence issues, but you still have character issues that people do their due diligence on. I know this is the NFL where, you know, if you can play, we forgive everything, apparently, except for dog fighting. Everything is forgiven except dog fighting. And you have all that stuff. That doesn't mean that, you know, it makes him any less not guilty. He should have been able to control himself. My problem with Joe Mixon, other than the fact that he hit that girl, isn't that, you know, it's a character issue. It's the fact of, like, I clearly see in this video that I can't trust you in public. Like, I don't know what that girl said to you. It's a he said, she said. No, there's only 3 people that know what that girl said to you: the girl, yourself, and God. And I can't ask God, but I can't fully know what happened because it's a he said, she said, literally. And I really can't trust you in public because what happens when the drunk fan, whether they're girl or male, come up to you and say, "Yo, Mixon, you suck." You gonna hit them? Like, my thing with him is, I know he's a great talent. I know he's gonna get drafted. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to get drafted. What I'm saying is, with a person like him, I agree with you. He needs to be in the right environment. But even in the right environment, the problem still remains that you can't trust him in public. It'd be one thing if this thing happened on campus or something, but this thing happened off campus in a very public place in a restaurant. That shows me that I can't trust you in public. You know, you can say it was a mistake all you want, but then the next question is, okay, if it was a mistake, what did that girl say to you to make you make that mistake? You know, that's the next natural question. So my thing is this with him. Again, you got to make the guarantee to me that I can trust you in public. That the next time a drunk person, male or female, I'm not saying she was drunk, but the next time a person, male or female, comes up to you and says something derogatory or something along those lines, that you won't hit them and I won't have to read about you in front page news. Like, I fully understand that he needs to make his money. Domestic violence is wrong. It's football, so he's going to get a job regardless because he can run the ball. But, you know, that's my take on it. There are plenty of people who don't show up in public, who just play the game and go home. He needs to be one of those players. Like Darrelle Revis was one of those players until he made that mistake a couple weeks ago, and that wound up getting him released. So I need to be guaranteed that I won't have no foolishness from you for the rest of your NFL career. If you gotta go home, go home. Don't stay in your house and be drunk. Don't have no girlfriend. Don't do whatever you gotta do to stay out of trouble. Then fine, he can be drafted. See, that's my thoughts on it. He's a great player. I watched him in college before I knew that he had this incident and everything. Great player, but again, there are some people that just need to be one of those people like a Ray Allen, like a Darrelle Revis. You get your money, you go home. We don't see you except on Sunday in that practice. That's what he needs to be. You agree with that, Matt?
To a degree. At the same time, look. Part of it I agree with, part I disagree with. Because my thing is simply this. You mentioned Greg Hardy, who pretty much is a bonehead anyway. But my thing is this. You need the right organization, the right team to draft him, basically. I mean, personally, look, I'll use Johnny Manziel as a prime example. Everybody knew that Johnny Manziel was a piece of work. You knew it. Everybody knew it. And pretty much the pressure of the National Football League got to him. The success of the National Football got to him. In fact, he wasn't successful in the first place, number one, because he was in a bad environment, the Cleveland Browns, who, for some reason, can't seem to draft the right quarterback anyway. Number two, I mean, it's like a musical court. It's like a revolving door of crummy quarterbacks. A revolving door. And you think about this. That mess to where as though I think it was a coach that did not want Johnny Manziel at all, and for good reason, because I think one of those main reasons because it did not fit the system that he wanted. The situation did not fit him, but the Cleveland brass wanted him anyway, drafted him anyway, brought him in, and look what we got. Okay. That's just one example. So, I mean, could he work in Dallas? No, because that's another franchise that's a circus. You need a now. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't have working in Philadelphia, but a place where, for example, dare I say Kansas City, okay? There's not a whole lot of places to go in Kansas City. Not a lot that I know of. But you have a quarterback coach at the time, Doug Peterson and Andy Reid. But what I'm saying is you the situation has to be right for certain people. And I'm not using this as an excuse, but also people's upbringing is enough. That's big too. So, but I'm gonna disagree with a few things and just leave it at that.
All right, fellas. We're gonna move on to other segment. We're gonna get on this real quick. Tomorrow is a Showtime game between the Warriors and the Spurs. So we're gonna get our predictions real quick. And before y'all say y'all predictions, Kawhi Leonard is not playing. He's in concussion protocol. So if that's gonna affect your pick, then I want to let you know now. Kawhi Leonard is not playing tomorrow. Concussion protocol. So go ahead. Let's start with Trey. Make sure he's awake. Trey, you there?
Yes, I am. I'm wide awake. So I mean, if Kawhi Leonard is not playing, I might have to say that the Warriors eke it out in a close one. But the Spurs could win it. You know, it'll be a close one. I think the Warriors win though. But I mean, it's a regular season game that I don't necessarily think will have any. It won't have any playoff implications just because Kawhi is not playing. And Kawhi, I mean, is a very reliable player, and will actually be there if they were to meet up in the playoffs somehow.
I will have to agree. I think the Warriors will win this one. Seeing as though Leonard's not going to be playing that game, I ain't got much on it, but I expect the Warriors to win that game anyway. So I'm taking the Warriors on this one.
I'm gonna make it a clean sweep. I'm gonna say the Warriors too because I fully expected like Matt. I fully expected the Warriors to win anyway because this is a game that they need. They just lost by 1 point to the Timberwolves, so they need this game. They need to make a statement, and I fully expect them to make a statement now because I really do think they're hearing this noise of people saying that they can't do it without KD, even though they did the last 2 years without KD. So I'm gonna let them. I think that they're definitely going to win, and that's how we're gonna end that segment. Let's see. Got two more, and it's almost 11:30. One got to be pushed back. So let's do. This is our new segment. We are starting a new thing that I borrowed from one of my favorite podcasts, Kind of Funny, where they did Colin Was Right, COLIN, when it comes to stuff in the electronics and entertainment world. So we are doing Colin Was Right, or in this case, hashtag Crossover Podcast Was Right, where we're going to run through really quickly the things that we were right about. And so in this case, totally called Alshon Jeffrey coming to the Eagles. Didn't call it for that short a time, but totally called that one. That's one. And the second one being that, now you guys don't, well, the Matt and Trey know about this one, but I had an argument with somebody on Facebook once the DeMarcus Cousins trade went down, in which I told that person that, DeMarcus Cousins, while a great player and everything, and Anthony Davis, while two great players, are it's a great acquisition, but it won't help them, and they probably will not make the playoffs. Now, this is before I knew that they were the ninth seed after the All-Star break. But now they've gone from the 9th seed to the 11th seed in the West, and now it's gotten to a point where the Kings actually have a better record than the Pelicans. And so currently with DeMarcus Cousins, Drew Holiday, and Anthony Davis. So I'm feeling real vindicated right now, but we're gonna let the fellas talk about this one. Now Trey and I already talked about Alshon Jeffrey coming to the Eagles, but Matt wasn't here. So I'll let Matt talk about that. We'll also get into talking about what's going on with the Pelicans. And, we'll probably change it so it's a little bit less of a self-serving title. But, hashtag Colin Was Right, for lack of a better term, because I am trying to make that a thing because, when it comes to most of the sports stuff, I am somewhat, at least most of the time, right. But I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying. But we'll change the title if somebody has a problem with it. But on that DeMarcus Cousins thing, before Matt goes in on Alshon Jeffrey and DeMarcus Cousins and all that, I wrote an article about that trade, and all my thoughts are on that trade on WatsonSportsTake.com. So check that one out. I think both Trey and Matt have read that article, so definitely check it out. Go ahead, Matt.
What was I right about? See here, I don't remember what much of anything I was right about. I was more concerned about Alshon Jeffrey showing up here in the first place, but the Eagles pretty much did what they were supposed to do. They got not one, but two receivers. So At least they got something right. Number one, and as far as baseball concerned, well, the Phillies are the Phillies, and they're doing it right. So let's see what happens from there. But by the way, the U.S. did win on a walk-off 2-1. Adam Jones hit a home run.
Trey, go ahead and talk about your favorite player in the pairing.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier. I got to give you props about your thoughts on DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis and him teaming up because it seemed like maybe that they could just the addition of DeMarcus Cousins even without really any other player on the team that's a formidable player, they could actually end up making the playoffs. But like you said, they haven't really done much at all. If anything, they've gotten worse. But I think that's only true. You're only right just for this season because I think next season they'll have learned to play with each other by the end of this season, and then they'll add some pieces in the off season. So, but as to Alshon Jeffrey, to me, free agency is always a toss up. You don't ever I literally was keeping track of who Alshon Jeffrey and whether or not he was going to sign with the Eagles or not, up to the second. And I think 3:30 hit, and I was and he hadn't signed, but some source that had said that he's leaning towards the Eagles, and then I saw somewhere that the Vikings had joined the Alshon Jeffrey, they had joined the teams that were trying to get Alshon Jeffrey, and I'm like, well, if he's leaning toward the Eagles, why, but aside from that, when they kind of announced that they were going to go hard for Alshon Jeffrey, Kyler had been saying that, hey, we had to go for Alshon Jeffrey, and I was skeptical about it just because of injury and whether or not we should go hard, in terms of money. But, he was right. So, hey.
So, to Trey's point, I'm not saying that they're gonna stay terrible forever. I'm just saying that for this year, it wasn't gonna do anything. And next year, I'm pretty sure that they'll probably have, once they learn to play with each other and they get some shooting, that DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis will be a problem. I was just making the point that they're not going to be a problem until next year. Is what I was trying to illuminate a couple weeks ago when I had this argument about it. About that. Not but when I got into this Facebook argument about what DeMarcus Cousins would do with Anthony Davis. And like we said earlier, DeMarcus Cousins, you weren't here, Matt, but I'm gonna sum this up real quick. Stat sheet stuffers don't usually wind up helping their teams go anywhere. And I use the example of our favorite little man, Allen Iverson, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, the people who are in that mode of stat sheet stuffers who do everything. And this is a larger point to why I like Russell Westbrook, but I thought his decision to stay at OKC was stupid at the same time. That you're a stat sheet stuffer, as he's proven with the triple doubles basically every night. But when you do triple doubles every night, it's a great feat. But it's also saying that you don't really have much around you team wise because you have to do everything. and so he leads in usage. He doesn't really get rest, which means he'll crash in the playoffs. So right now, currently, the Thunder are in sixth place, right? So if the season were to end today, they'd be the sixth seed, right? But they'll probably wind up either being the seventh or the eighth seed because they continue to not be able to win. Whether Russell Westbrook, it continues to be a toss-up whether they'll win a game depending on whether Russell Westbrook does a triple-double or not, right? So my larger point is that stat sheet stuffers don't go anywhere. Or like Allen Iverson, they'll get you to the finals. Or LeBron James, they'll get you to the finals. And even though LeBron has 3 rings, there's been a couple of times where he was a stat sheet stuffer. He got his team there, only won 1 or 2 games, and succumbed to the better team, right? So, and that's what Allen Iverson did when he lost to the Lakers. Took a weak team that had no business in the finals to the finals and only won 1 game. So, that's the larger point. And I guess I'll let you talk about how you feel about what's more important, wins or stats, and then we could end this. And then you could, so go ahead and talk about that.
Wins are more important than statistics. I mean, the stats measure what you do both individually and collectively. So with that being said, right, I care about how you win the game. If giving me a double-double or triple-double leads to wins, by all means, do that. But if it does not, then what's the point? But you need the right combination to literally, you need the right combination to get to the win, to have a X amount of wins to get to where you gotta go. So, look, it's how you play the game. It's how you win the game. Plain and simple, you play to win. No one plays just for numbers. You want to play for numbers, then go play for the Sixers. So, hello. So, with that being said, like, dude, I'm in it for the wins. Bottom line, in the NBA, I only need at least 50. I need about 42 to 52 wins to get into the playoffs. That's all I care about. And then the rest, let the chips fall where they may. But the bottom line is, win the games that you need to win to get to where you have to go. Because no one's going to remember the fact that you made 30.1 points per game. You won the MVP and you still lose. Remember that's a footnote. I mean, that's what the Sixers did. Got all the hardware. Got the Sixth Man of the Year, the Coach of the Year, the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, but did not get the hardware, which was the NBA championship. Got to win the games. That's it. All the French stuff don't mean nothing if you don't win the game.
All right, and with that wraps up the 22nd episode of the Crossover Sports Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Tell us if you like the new format. Hit us up at Kylan W. Watson, where we do talk about politics, but we limit it to about one topic, and we keep it. I try as best I can to keep it sports, but sometimes, like I said, this is a podcast where we delve into current events, and we take some time to talk about current events. But sports podcast going to keep it sports, and I'm very thankful for the fellas for coming through and always coming through and being faithful on a Friday night. And it's great to be here talking about sports, talking about politics, talking about what we're passionate about. And so you can hit us up at Kylan W. Watson is my Twitter. You can also hit the podcast up as a whole at the Crossover PO1. That is the podcast Twitter handle. So definitely hit us up and let us know what you think. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay warm, stay cool, depending on what part of the country you're on or in what country you're in when you listen to this. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.